The day I went into labor was supposed to be the happiest of my life. I imagined feeling love, support, and care as I brought my baby into the world. Instead, I was met with cold instructions and harsh words. My husband's mother, Rona, and his sister cornered me at the hospital, demanding I sign divorce papers. I was exhausted, scared, and in pain, but they acted as if it was normal, as if my feelings didn't matter at all. I looked at Kale, my husband, hoping he would step in, but he stayed silent. He didn't defend me, didn't comfort me, and didn't stop them. I felt completely alone. With trembling hands, I signed the papers, feeling as though my life had been ripped away while I was too weak to fight. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. After the birth, I held my newborn, Emery, and cried quietly. I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself but for this tiny life depending on me. While Kale's family continued to interfere in our lives, I started planning quietly. I researched legal options, kept careful records, and waited for the right moment to reclaim control. 9 months later, I discovered a loophole in the divorce and custody papers that they had overlooked. It gave me the power to turn the situation around. I didn't yell, I didn't insult them, I acted calmly, strategically, and legally. When I used this advantage, Kale's family was stunned. Their control crumbled, and for the first time, they realized I wouldn't be pushed around. I reclaimed my independence and full custody of Emery. I didn't celebrate their loss. I focused on peace, dignity, and strength. Sometimes the best revenge isn't anger, it's showing resilience and never letting anyone take your power again. I have always been the type to care quietly, to give more than I take, and to keep promises even when it was hard. I worked hard, stayed patient, and tried to create harmony wherever I could. Putting others first felt natural, not a burden. I believed that relationships were built on honesty and respect. I never sought attention or drama, I simply wanted stability and love. I trusted easily because I assumed people would honor the bonds they shared with me. That trust shaped my decisions, my hopes, and my life. Even when challenges came, I faced them with calm determination. I avoided conflict whenever possible, thinking understanding could solve most problems. I valued loyalty above all else and thought that kindness would be returned in equal measure. But my faith in people was tested in ways I had never imagined. The betrayal I faced made me realize that not everyone operates with the same principles. It forced me to confront the harsh truth that goodwill can be exploited, and that protecting oneself is sometimes more important than always giving. I am someone who believed in the best in others, who worked quietly and honestly, and who expected life to reward integrity. That belief shaped who I am, how I acted, and what I tolerated. The experiences that followed challenged every assumption I had, forcing me to reevaluate trust, boundaries, and the meaning of real strength. Even in pain, I held on to the part of me that values dignity and patience. I wanted to face hardship with courage, not resentment. I am Tess, and my story is proof that kindness can coexist with resilience, even when the people you love most try to destroy it. Kale seemed gentle and caring at first, always ready with a smile or a kind word. I believed in his love and thought we shared the same values. But beneath that warmth was a pattern I didn't see until it was too late. Rona, his mother, had a way of quietly dominating conversations and steering decisions without seeming harsh. She made everyone feel that her way was the only correct path. Even small choices, what we ate, where we went, how we planned events, were subtly dictated by her preferences. Kale's father and sister rarely spoke up, but their presence reinforced her authority. Together, they created an environment where disagreement felt impossible. Their unity wasn't just family closeness, it was a mechanism of control. Anyone who tried to assert themselves faced cold stares, passive criticism, or subtle exclusion. At first, I thought this was normal family dynamics. I tried to adapt, thinking compromise was part of love. I didn't recognize the way their influence was gradually pushing me into a corner, shaping my decisions, and making me doubt my own judgment. The cruelty wasn't loud or obvious, it was layered under politeness and charm. Rona's words often sounded reasonable, her actions carefully masked as guidance or concern. But over time, the manipulation became clear. Decisions were never mine to make, and any attempt to assert myself was met with resistance cloaked in civility. Looking back, I see that their control was deliberate. It wasn't just about tradition or family hierarchy, it was about power. And I had been caught in the middle, trusting the man I loved while navigating a household built on fear, obedience, and subtle cruelty. I imagined months filled with excitement, gentle care, and moments to bond with my growing baby. Instead, every day brought stress and subtle judgment. Simple choices about my health, my diet, and my comfort were questioned, debated, or dismissed as if I didn't know what was best for myself. Visits from Kale's family were never lighthearted. Comments about my weight, my energy, and even the way I prepared for the baby felt like constant scrutiny. Their opinions were framed as concern, but it carried the weight of control. Each remark chipped away at my confidence, leaving me second-guessing my instincts. I tried to protect my peace, avoiding arguments and keeping my thoughts to myself. I focused on preparing for the baby, hoping that the joy of motherhood would outweigh the tension surrounding me. But the criticism never stopped. Even small celebrations, like decorating the nursery, became opportunities for them to impose their preferences, leaving me feeling unseen and unheard. Kale sometimes remained silent, unsure how to intervene, which only deepened my sense of isolation. I learned to smile politely, nod, and hide my frustration, afraid that confrontation would only worsen the situation. Despite the anxiety, I held on to hope that once the baby arrived, our family would find balance, that love would overcome the control and criticism. I clung to the moments when I felt my baby move, reminders that I was creating life despite the stress surrounding me. Looking back, I see that the pregnancy was a test of endurance. It revealed not just the fragility of trust and family dynamics, but also my capacity to stay focused, patient, and strong even when my world felt completely controlled by others. The hospital room was supposed to feel safe, filled with the hope of new life, but instead it became a trap. Rona arrived with a calm, persuasive tone that hid the cruelty beneath. She spoke softly, insisting that signing the papers would prevent future problems, that it was the sensible choice. I tried to focus on my breathing, on the contractions, anything to block out the pressure, but her words cut through the haze. She leaned close, reminding me how difficult life would be alone, framing her demands as guidance. Every argument, every plea from my side was met with calm dismissal. Kale stood nearby, his eyes downcast, saying nothing. The man I trusted to protect me became a silent observer. His hesitation made their manipulation even more effective, leaving me feeling completely trapped. Pain and exhaustion made resistance nearly impossible. Each moment stretched painfully, every demand from Rona feeling heavier than the last. She exploited my vulnerability with precision, aware that my strength was at its lowest point. I felt fear, confusion, and betrayal all at once. The people who should have supported me, my husband, the family I married into, had turned the room into a place where my consent was coerced and my choices stripped away. Finally, overwhelmed and drained, I signed the papers. It was done quietly, mechanically, but inside, something shattered. The trust one had placed in them was gone, replaced by a hollow anger and a growing determination to reclaim control over my life when I was strong enough to do so. I curled into the hospital bed, heart pounding and chest tight, feeling utterly abandoned. Every expectation I had of protection, care, and love vanished in that instant. The room seemed colder, emptier, as the weight of what was happening pressed down on me. My body ached, my mind raced, but the hardest part was the silence from Kale. He remained passive, watching without stepping in, as if my suffering didn't matter. The betrayal wasn't just in Rona's actions, it was in his inaction, the quiet approval his lack of resistance implied. I felt trapped between pain and helplessness. Each signature I made felt like surrendering a part of myself, handing over control that I had always assumed was mutual. I couldn't believe the people I trusted most had engineered this moment to dominate me when I was weakest. Shame and fury mixed inside me. I hated that I felt powerless, hated that I had been forced into a decision I never wanted. The weight of the betrayal pressed down, leaving no room for hope or comfort. It was total, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I realized that survival meant more than submission. My anger became focused, quiet, and deliberate. I knew that this wouldn't define the rest of my life. The breaking point wasn't just despair, it was the spark that would later drive me to reclaim control and ensure that no one could ever treat me that way again. The days after bringing Emery home were long and exhausting. Nights blended into mornings as I fed, comforted, and cared for my baby, all while my mind replayed the betrayal over and over. Every diaper change and every sleepless hour was a reminder of the life I hadn't chosen, forced into circumstances I never imagined. Kale avoided eye contact, avoided conversations, and avoided responsibility. His focus seemed fixed on pleasing his family rather than supporting me or acknowledging what had happened. Their opinions guided his actions, leaving me to navigate the chaos alone. I felt a deep, gnawing emptiness. The trust one had placed in him was gone, replaced by confusion and hurt. Simple moments that should have been joyful felt heavy with the weight of betrayal. The home that was meant to be safe now felt like a battlefield. Despite the pain, I made a decision: I wouldn't let despair consume me. I focused on Emery, on routines, and on building a sense of stability amid the chaos. Every small victory, getting through a night, managing a feeding, seeing my baby smile, reminded me that I still had strength and purpose. I observed Kale's family from a distance, noticing how their influence over him shaped everything, yet I refused to be drawn into their control. I stayed careful, documenting details, noting patterns, and quietly planning for the future. Even in isolation, I found moments of clarity. I realized that healing and rebuilding my life required patience, self-reliance, and quiet determination. Abandonment could not define me, and my love for Emery became the foundation on which I would stand, stronger than ever. I spent hours alone, thinking through every detail of my situation. I reviewed bank statements, bills, and agreements, making sure I understood exactly where I stood and where gaps could be used to my advantage. Every number mattered, every document was a piece of a larger puzzle. Legal research became my refuge. I learned about rights, procedures, and loopholes, taking careful notes and making lists of what actions I could take. Each night, after Emery slept, I pored over contracts and regulations, building a plan that would protect both of us. I didn't rush or act impulsively. Every step was measured, intentional, and discreet. I couldn't afford mistakes, so I double-checked every piece of information and considered potential outcomes before moving forward. Patience became my ally. Along the way, I quietly strengthened my support network. Friends who understood the situation offered advice, perspective, and encouragement, without involving Kale or his family. Their guidance reminded me that I wasn't completely alone, even if it often felt that way. I visualized what reclaiming control would look like: stable finances, legal security, and the ability to make decisions without coercion. That vision kept me motivated during moments of doubt and exhaustion. By focusing on preparation rather than confrontation, I turned frustration into strategy. I built a foundation that would allow me to face the future on my own terms. The quiet work, the meticulous planning, and the careful steps weren't dramatic, but they were powerful. Each action moved me closer to reclaiming autonomy and ensuring that betrayal would no longer dictate my life. Months of careful observation and research finally paid off. While reviewing the divorce papers again, I noticed a clause that had been ignored, a tiny oversight that Kale's family hadn't considered. It was subtle, buried in formal language, but it held real power. The detail concerned custody and decision-making authority, something they had assumed was fully under their control. Their overconfidence had left a gap, and that gap gave me leverage I had quietly prepared for without them realizing it. I studied the wording thoroughly, ensuring I fully understood the implications. One misstep could backfire, so I mapped out every scenario, imagining how they might respond and how I could remain protected while asserting my rights. This opportunity didn't arrive loudly or dramatically, it appeared quietly, as a chance I had earned through diligence and patience. I felt a surge of determination knowing that the tables could finally turn. The control they had exerted for so long could now be challenged legally and firmly. I planned my approach carefully, thinking through conversations, documents, and timing. I didn't want conflict fueled by emotion, I wanted resolution grounded in facts and proper procedure. My focus remained on Emery and myself, ensuring that our security came first. The realization was empowering. The very people who had pressured, manipulated, and humiliated me had left a door open, unaware that I had the knowledge, patience, and courage to walk through it. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control returning to my life. I moved carefully, making sure every step was deliberate. I reviewed all documents, prepared my statements, and followed each procedure exactly as required. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation, only steady, calculated action that left no room for error. When I initiated the process, I remained composed, speaking clearly and confidently. I didn't argue or accuse, I presented facts, evidence, and legal requirements that could not be ignored. My calmness contrasted sharply with the tension they had created, making their discomfort almost tangible. Each interaction was measured. I responded politely but firmly to questions, clarifying points without hesitation. Every move reinforced my authority while exposing their previous assumptions and mistakes. They had expected compliance or fear, but instead they encountered resolve and preparation. I felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that the leverage I had built over months was now effective. The pressure I had endured for so long was turning toward them, not through anger or revengeful words, but through undeniable truth and rightful procedure. Their reactions were immediate. Confusion, hesitation, and shock replaced the confidence they had once wielded effortlessly. I didn't need to gloat, the situation itself revealed the consequences of their earlier manipulation. Through patience, careful planning, and precise action, I reclaimed control. This wasn't about punishment for its own sake, it was about restoring balance, asserting my rights, and proving that dignity and preparation can outweigh intimidation. The quiet execution of my plan became its own form of power, undeniable and lasting. The moment the challenge was formally submitted, the shift was immediate. Faces that had once held authority and certainty froze. Their confident expressions faltered as they realized the rules they had assumed were unchangeable could be questioned and reversed. Rona's calm demeanor cracked first. She searched for words, for a way to regain dominance, but nothing came easily. Her gestures became sharp, uncertain, betraying a sudden awareness that control had slipped through her fingers. Kale's hesitation turned into visible panic. He tried to interject, to assert influence, but the legal framework left little room for maneuvering. Every attempt to regain footing only emphasized how thoroughly their assumptions had failed. The family had planned for compliance, for passive acceptance, and for the idea that I would remain quiet. They never imagined preparation, patience, and knowledge could turn the tables so completely. Each document, each clause I presented undermined the foundation of power they had built over months. Their scrambling was quiet but frantic. Conversations that had once flowed smoothly became tense, punctuated with whispered consultations and hurried phone calls. Decisions that had felt secure now required careful reconsideration, and every choice reminded them that their previous dominance had been an illusion. I observed without interruption, letting their reactions unfold naturally. There was no need for commentary or intimidation, their shock spoke louder than any words I could have used. The sudden vulnerability of those who had seemed untouchable was undeniable. For the first time, they confronted the reality that their control was conditional, fragile, and dependent on my silence. And that silence was gone. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of months lift from my shoulders. Every decision I made from that point forward was guided by clarity and intention. Emery's well-being became my priority, and I built routines that ensured both of us felt safe and supported. Independence felt different than I expected. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but steady and grounding. I set boundaries firmly, made choices freely, and refused to allow anyone else's opinions or past manipulations to dictate our lives. I focused on creating stability. Financial matters, legal responsibilities, and daily life were organized carefully, giving me a sense of control that had been absent for far too long. Every small victory reinforced that I could protect myself and my child without anger or revenge. The sense of peace that came from reclaiming autonomy was profound. I no longer needed validation from Kale or his family. Their opinions, their expectations, and their previous attempts to dominate us no longer held weight. I moved forward calmly, making decisions with intention and care. Every action emphasized self-respect, showing that true strength lies in patience, discipline, and the courage to prioritize one's own life over the need to retaliate. Choosing myself wasn't about proving a point to anyone. It was about reclaiming dignity, protecting Emery, and living with integrity. The quiet resolve I carried became my shield, my anchor, and my guide, proving that empowerment doesn't need drama, it only needs determination and self-respect. Looking back, I realize how deeply family betrayal can wound. The pain lingers in quiet moments, in memories that surface unexpectedly. It shakes trust, challenges beliefs, and leaves scars that aren't easily visible but are profoundly felt. Survival, however, brought a sense of triumph far greater than anger could provide. Rebuilding life on my own terms, protecting Emery, and reclaiming control over decisions gave me a strength that no revenge could match. It was steady, lasting, and deeply satisfying. I learned that the most powerful response isn't confrontation or spectacle. It's patience, preparation, and acting when the opportunity arises. By taking control of my own path, I ensured that those who tried to dominate or manipulate could no longer influence our lives. The experience taught me resilience. I discovered that dignity and peace are earned through persistence and clarity, not by fighting with force or raising voices. Quiet determination became my ally, and self-respect became the foundation on which I rebuilt everything. Now, I understand that betrayal does not define who you are, it tests who you can become. By focusing on what matters, protecting what you love, and acting with foresight, you can turn even the darkest moments into opportunities for strength and growth. The lesson is simple but profound. True justice lies in reclaiming your life, in ensuring control rests where it belongs, and in refusing to let anyone wield power over you again. That is the quiet, lasting victory that no one can take away. Do you think I did the right thing by standing up for myself and reclaiming my life, or should I have tried to forgive them? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more stories like mine, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video.